Back for another lesson in Math 8. Today we are on Unit 3, Lesson 10, Calculating Slope. We're going to figure out how to calculate the slope between two points. Hopefully this is somewhat of a review, as we have done a little bit of this in the past, but let's just hang tight and see what we come up with. To get started, what we need to understand is a little bit of division. When we talk about division, we're going to look at some values for A and B that make each side have the same value. So we want to make these equations have values for A and B so that they equal to -2 in number 1, and then 2 and 2, and -2 and 3. So let's take a look. All of these skills are used with determining the slope when finding the slope and calculating slope from 2 points. So what I need to know with this piece, first off, with number 1 is I understand that when I divide a positive and a negative, so let's say I take a negative number divided by a positive number, I'm going to get a negative quotient. So let's think about something that gives me a quotient of -2. Perhaps I could say A is -4 and B is 2. And I know that -4 divided by 2 is -2. Or maybe I want to see something like -8 divided by 4 is -2. Also realize that if I take a value such as 8 and divide it by -4, I get the value of -2. There are literally going to be millions of ways to actually solve this, so give it your best shot and finding those out. You can use any numbers you want as long as they actually divide into -2. The first one, I could really just take the same numbers. Excuse me. Or I can just take other numbers. Let's think about this. Since there's millions of possibilities, why don't we take 6 divided by 3 is equal to 2? Or maybe I take something like 7 divided by 3.5 is equal to 2. There are a lot of opportunities with this. Or let's take this one. Let's take -10 divided by -5 is equal to +2. Think about all those possibilities and how that can work. Talking about number 3, we're now talking about subtraction. What I need to remember about this, anytime that I come up with an answer that comes up as a negative under subtraction, the value of A has to be smaller than the value of B, no matter what it is. So I could take something like -1 and subtract 1 from that to make it a little smaller to get -2. I could take something like -8 and add 6 to it and get -2. But that doesn't really show the same relationship right here. When we're talking about subtraction, I need to talk about subtraction. So I could take this and 2 and subtract 4 from it to get -2. You see the idea. Okay. The next step, we're going to move more towards the general slope formula that we've already actually learned. In this one, we're going to plot the points 1 and 11 and 8 and 2, and then use a ruler to draw a line that passes through them. Okay. On the next page, when we're looking at this, we want to look at, without calculating, do you expect to have, or do you expect the slope of the line through 1, 11, and 8, 2 to be positive or negative, and how can you tell? And then we're going to calculate the slope of this line. I'm going to keep all of that on this page right here. When we look at this, do you expect it to be positive or negative? When we look at this line, we need to look at and read it just like we would read a book, from left to right, top to bottom. As we read from left to right, starting right here, we see that the values of x, as they are increasing, the values of y are decreasing. And so we see that this slope right here, if we're talking about the values of x increasing, that's positive on the denominator. And we see on the y, as values of y decreasing, that's negative on the denominator. So we have negative rise over positive run, which would tell us that this here is a negative slope. Now, how do I calculate that slope? Remember that we have the ordered pairs of 1 and 11 and 8 and 2. The way that we typically think about this is that slope formula that we've used before, where we take the change in y over the change in x. What we've seen in the past is we simply just take from the one point and we rise, in this case, rise meaning going down. And you might think, well, how is rise going in a down direction? Well, when we talk about rise, we're talking about vertical change. So the vertical change as compared to the horizontal change. So we take the vertical change here from 11 down to 2, which is going to be 11 minus 2. And then we take the horizontal change that goes from 1 to 8, 1 minus 8. And we get 9 divided by -7. And this would be our slope. We can count the same way and count down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Rise -9 over a run of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now for me, the way I like to do this every single time, I actually like to take the second point that I see when I'm working left to right, and I like to use that one as the first order pairs that I use. So when I do that, I like to take it like this. I do 2 minus and then 8 minus. So I take that order pair, it's the first thing that I list, and then I take the second order pair and I subtract the y coordinate and then I subtract the x coordinate. And what I get is a negative number over a positive number. The reason I really like this one is because I will always have a positive value for x when I work with this from the larger minus the smaller with regard to the x coordinate. So we see the slope of this line is -9/7. It doesn't matter where that negative sign is. The fact that we have one negative symbol is a positive divided by a negative and a negative divided by a positive. So the slope here is -9/7. For a little bit of a challenge and a little bit of extra credit, these 5 problems, we're supposed to find the value of k. This is not constant of proportionality. This is just a variable that's representing an unknown number, so that the line passing through each pair of points has a given slope. I'll work through the first one with you, but the rest of them are bonus. You'll be able to find that with today's assignment. So the question is, I have a slope of 2. I have k and 2 for my x and y, and then I have x and y of 11 and 14. The way that I would set this up is I would go like this. I would say the change in y, 14 minus 2, divided by, since I started with this ordered pair over here, I have to start right here with 11 minus k is equal to 2. Now I can kind of think ahead on this thing and I can say, 14 minus 2 is 12, divided by 11 minus something equals 2. I know that 12 divided by 6 is 2, and so I'd have to think about 12 divided by 11 minus what equals 6, and I know 11 minus 5 equals 6, and so I can simply say that 12 divided by 6 is equal to 2. And I know that the value of k in this case is k equals 5. Several different ways to do this, but that's one way to do this, to work through it. I want you to challenge yourself. I really like for you to challenge yourself on problems 1 through 5 and be prepared to show your work and submit your work for the extra credit to count. The last activity is all about making decisions. This would be one where I'd have to be giving you cards with a blank graph and so on and so forth. And we just simply are not able to do that one here. So that quick review, hopefully a very quick review of how to determine slope from 2 points. We learned earlier that one way to find the slope of a line is by drawing a slope triangle. For example, if we use the slope triangle shown here, the slope of the line is -2/4 or -1/2. We know this because we went from point A to point B. We have a rise or a horizontal change of -2 units, down 2 units, followed by a horizontal run of a +4 units to the right. But slope triangles are only one way to calculate the slope. If we compute the slope of the line a different way using the points A of 1, 5 and B of 5, 3, we can simply find the change in y divided by the change in x. So keep that in mind, is that the y value change is compared to the x value change. This means that the slope is -4 or -2/4 or -1/2, which is the same as what we found using the slope triangle. So whenever we take those calculations, notice that we always did something. we always took the coordinates of A minus the coordinates of B, or we take the coordinates of B minus the coordinates of A. We have to follow the same order no matter how we do this. Otherwise, we are not going to get the exact same outcomes as we need. So very quickly, let's pause this. If you'll recall, sometime ago, a couple weeks ago, we had a work that we had to do like this called the slope from 2 points, or the slope between 2 points. And I wanted to just briefly review a couple of these to make sure that we remember how to do this, just so I can show you a couple of examples before you get going into homework and before you get going into the lesson. I'm going to work with number 2, and then I'll go ahead and work with number 4. Okay, here we go. This is number 2 right here. We will notice that we have the 2 equations, and the whole thing about this, if we think about it in terms like we just discussed of ordered pair A, ordered pair B, I need to choose one of these to start with. What I always like to do with mine is I always like to choose the larger x value as my x2. The smaller x value is my x1, meaning that it comes to the left before, or it comes on the left side before I see it. So I see this one right here first. So when we talk about the slope formula, m is equal to y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1, what I'm talking about with these sub 1, sub 2 is simply this. The first order pair that I see along the graph is this one right here, is x, negative 2. So this will become x sub 1 and y sub 1. This will be the first order pair that I use. So I guess maybe it would make more sense to actually change this and call this order pair A over here, and this would be over here. And then I just start setting up my, or organizing my work. -7 minus -19. One of the common mistakes that I see is people mistake this minus sign right here, this negative sign, as the minus sign right here. We can't do that. We have to keep those 2 negative signs. We have to keep them separate from each other. Now, since I started with order pair A, I need to finish with order pair A and my x's. And then I need to remember something about this, that when I subtract a negative, I'm doing the same thing as adding. When you subtract a negative, rather than moving left on a number line, we are actually removing negatives, which moves us to the right on the number line. And so when we have -7 minus -19, we're saying the same thing as -7 plus 19 divided by -2 minus 1, which would give us 12 divided by -3, or a slope of -4. Now, if we look for this one over here, let's take a look and follow that strategy or the logic that I brought up with the smaller of the x's as x1. So we have this one right here, 9, 16. 9 is smaller than 20, so I'll make this order pair A, this one order pair B, and then I will follow that order. So using order pair A, 16 and 9, y over x, minus the y over x here, 8 over 20. And then I would simply go ahead, let me double check I did that right, 16, there we go. So 16 minus 8 is 8, 9 minus 20 is -11. And what happens here is I actually didn't follow what I had talked about, because I did follow the rules correctly. I just didn't follow the order that I just said. So, but that's okay, because I'm going to show you that it won't change the outcome. We come up with a slope of -8/11. Let's say if I switched it around and went here first and did y first, 8 minus 16 this way, and then 20 minus 9. What I get here is -8 divided by 11. And you'll see that these two slopes, even though the negative sign is on the numerator on one, the denominator on the other, it doesn't matter, because we know that when we have a positive value and a negative value and we find the quotient of the two, we always get a negative outcome. So I think that's probably good for this lesson. Give me a shout out if you have any questions about how to calculate slope. Remember that there is an extra credit opportunity with that little section right here of Are You Ready for More? I've already done the first one for you. Give it a shot. Don't forget to do your homework and have a great day.